doing top five. We're
Yeah.
doing top five. We're doing top five head coaches in the AFC South. And I obviously would think that this list wouldn't be very big. But I've got 6 guys. I got an honorable mention. I got another 5 guys that I think would fit the mold of top head coaches in this division. So if I'm going to go with my honorable mention, I'm going to put Gary Kubiak in there, honorable mention. I think he was a pretty damn good head coach in an era where Houston's defense may not have been the very best. They had D'Amico Ryans at the time. You're rolling with Matt Schaub. You're rolling with Arian Foster. You're rolling with Andre Johnson. Pretty prolific offense. I think he led the league in passing yards once or twice. Didn't have a whole lot of playoff success, but as an offensive guru, I think Gary Kubiak's a really good coach and probably doesn't get enough credit where it's due.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And number 5, I've got Jack Del Rio with his time with Jacksonville. I think he's one of the longest tenured coaches in the division. You got to think he's been responsible for drafting guys like Maurice Jones-Drew, David Garrard, Byron Leftwich. I think he was the coach when they still had Fred Taylor and some of those other good guys at the receiving corps. I think Jack Del Rio is another really underrated coach that, just for example, when he was with Oakland before they moved to Vegas, I think they had went on a 12-4 year with Derek Carr until he broke his fibula, and they just fired him out of nowhere. They didn't really give him a chance to prove that they could do it again. Very underrated coach. I really like his attitude. I like his style. I've got him at number 5.
Okay.
Number 4, I've got Mike Vrabel at 4.
I like that one.
I like Mike Vrabel. Up until recently, I mean, they've been at least 2 AFC title games. They've had some really good success, for sure. Obviously, he's still coaching there, and I think as time goes on, as long as things don't go too sour, he'll definitely climb on this list. I'm rooting for him, being that he's from New England. I think he's got a good high football IQ. I think he's really good at developing his players, but I've got him at 4 right now.
All right. I think he's been one of the best assistants to come from the Patriots in a while. Because like I said, it's been rough for some of Belichick's assistants.
that's a segment in itself. We could talk about that another day.
Yeah, but he's definitely one of my favorites. I like the way he has his team. Sometimes just like when teams just run the ball, man. Run the ball and good defense, man. It's not exciting, but you can crush the will of a team and just see them just quit on the field, you know? Like I just kind of like the way he played. Like they made my Baltimore Ravens like quit that day. And that was tough, man. I ain't gonna lie, that was tough to watch, man. But yeah, good team.
With my number 3, he's not a very liked coach, and he gets a lot of flack. But you can't deny the statistics and the wins he has. I got Jeff Fisher at 3.
Okay.
You got to think he was one goal line play away from winning the Super Bowl with Kevin Dyson at the end zone. Just couldn't get that ball over the goal line.
He missed it.
Really good game, by the way.
1 yard.
Really good game. If nobody's ever watched that Super Bowl, it's a really good game. But man, Jeff Fisher is a really underrated coach. Obviously, he definitely has a lot of weaknesses. Didn't show a whole lot of success after that, and continued to get jobs over and over and over. But I think as a body as a whole, if you're just looking at his career and his mentality, I don't think Jeff Fisher is a bad coach. I just think he doesn't make the greatest decisions in game or as an organizational standpoint. All right. So obviously we've got our honorable mention. We've got Jack Del Rio at 5. We've got Mike Vrabel at 4. We've got Jeff Fisher at 3. If I'm going to go number 2, probably a guy that I don't really remember he coached it. I got Tom Coughlin when he was with the Jaguars in the 90s. Man, to take a franchise pretty much off the ground when most people are going to think, oh, mediocrity, or they're going to struggle. Man, he really got the tires spinning on the concrete, man. They freaking made back-to-back AFC Championship games with Mark Brunell as your quarterback, really underrated left-handed quarterback. Jacksonville was really exciting to watch at that point. And, I mean, if you look at Tom Coughlin's career as a whole, obviously he goes on to New York. He wins 2 Super Bowls with Eli Manning, 2 Super Bowls that I don't really like to talk about for obvious reasons. But in due time, obviously, we'll go through that. But Tom Coughlin, that was the beginning. That was the beginning of him, like, establishing himself. Like I said, he ended up going to New York, but his time in Jacksonville was very memorable. And I feel like a lot of people should give him credit for what he did for that franchise so early on.
And I think they fired him too soon, honestly.
Mm-hmm. They didn't give him enough. Like they didn't win it, and I think like a season after that, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna cut ties.
Right. And
But
I was like, I think his second tenure with the Jacksonville Jaguars was too late. It was too late. Like the
yeah,
game,
and he wasn't even the coach at that point either. So.
yeah, the game had changed to the point where you can't win with Fred Taylor like you could with Leonard Fournette. You can't do that because the game didn't change so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like I said, there's no doubt in how good he really was.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure you're gonna have the same number one as me, but we still need to give credit where it's due, and that's Tony Dungy. I mean,
yeah,
what he did with that Colts team, what he did with Peyton Manning, man, like you got to think that's some of the best games you could have watched anytime during the early to mid 2000s between him and Brady and him in Baltimore and him in Pittsburgh. Man, the Colts were consistently in question to be the number one team in the AFC every year besides the Patriots. I mean, Tony Dungy wins the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay, leaves, comes to Indianapolis, takes him a little while, but has a perennial powerhouse, finally gets over the hump and beats Chicago in the Super Bowl, establishes himself as a more of a Hall of Fame head coach. Very underrated. A lot of people don't talk about him. But definitely what he did with Peyton Manning and them boys, he's more than deserving to be number one. I think it's by a landslide. I don't think anybody's close.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna be honest. He didn't win a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay, but
Well, you know what I
he
mean. You
was
pretty much.
responsible. He was
That's what I
responsible.
meant. That's what I meant to say. I mean, you got to
That
think
was,
John Gruden pretty much took over his team.
yeah, man. That was his squad, man. But like I said, man, going into that could be a part of our closing arguments. But we'll get into that a little later. But yeah, but Tony Dungy is definitely a great number one. Like he won so many championship games. He won so many not championship games, but division titles, a whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Like they put a lock on that for at least 8 years straight, to the point where
Easy.
wasn't nobody winning. I mean, I think the Titans had a little run where they went like 14-2 or something, like one of those things. But that was
Mm-hmm.
like the only time anybody else really won that division. So, but yeah, I agree, Tony Dungy. So, all right, great list, man, great list, great list. Like I
Let's see
said,
what you got.
I think my list will end up in the same place as yours with Tony Dungy because he was just that good. But leading up to my number one, we're gonna have some differences of opinion. So, all right, so number 5 for me is Doug Pederson right now. Right now.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand why. I just can't. I just couldn't do it off of 1 year. But he's literally on the cusp of, you know,
I'm talking like I'll put him 5 just simply because of the mess he had to clean up when he got
from
there.
Urban Meyer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so having to come in and just kind of settle down everybody, like, yo, look, I'm not him. I'm not gonna do that. We're gonna ride Trevor Lawrence and he's gonna take us to where we want to go. We got a host of young talent, and we're just gonna erase whatever happened the year before. And we're just gonna go back to playing good football. And like I said, I love what he did. And shoot, he's a good coach anyway, a Super Bowl winning head coach. So let's just
Mm-hmm.
add that to his resume. So I think that all time he's definitely on. He's 5 to me, like because to fix that mess and then go to the
Do it in
playoffs
such a quick time,
go to the playoffs right after that. Like
and then knock off the Chargers in the playoffs with Justin Herbert.
exactly. So, like I said, that shows that you are a good leader of men, and you got them on the right path, man. So definitely, out of all the coaches, definitely 5. And I love me some Jack Del Rio, but I can't put him over Doug Peterson, man. Especially coming in after that mess, because the mess that Del Rio came into was way less than what Doug Peterson had to deal with. So Doug
Mm-hmm.
Peterson, number 5. Number 4, Kubiak. Gary Kubiak, number 4 for me, because he was the one to fix the Houston Texans, in my opinion. The Houston Texans obviously started in like 02 or whatever, and they had Dom Capers as their coach, man. And he definitely built. He definitely. I'm not gonna say that he didn't have success because he did build that team up, right? But Gary Kubiak put it all together. Like he put everything together. They start making the playoffs and becoming a real team rather than an expansion team. I feel like with him, they shedded that expansion team mindset and they actually wanted to win. He put some good players. He obviously he built around Matt Schaub, and he has some great players to go along with Arian Foster. D'Amico Ryans, who's the coach right now, was very big on his defense. Mario Williams was still there, so they had some great players on defense. But I think Gary Kubiak stabilizing that offense definitely helped them become a playoff franchise rather than just an expansion team. So definitely number 4 for me, Gary Kubiak. Number 3 is Tom Coughlin, man. I would love to have put him 2, but he just didn't have time. But the impact that he had on the Jaguars to get them to not only 1 but 2 AFC championship games within his time frame there, that definitely put him high on my list in terms of coaches in this division, because he had a host of good players, man, that could really ball, man. He had 2 really good receivers in Keenan McCardell and Jimmy Smith, and they would just run over everybody. And obviously Mark Brunell, getting him, I want to say out of the expansion draft or something like that, but getting him was big for their success, and he just rolled him, and that was good, man. Like I said, tough end to his career there, but like I said, he turned that into 2 Super Bowls and legendary status. So, like I said, number 3 on my list. Number 2 is Jeff Fisher for me, man, because consistency. Out of all the guys we've mentioned, nobody has been more consistent in terms of win totals, staying in the picture, not getting top 5 picks or whatever, but just consistency. And he was the most consistent guy that I think they've had in their franchise, man, because they go back to their Oilers days. This is 2 franchises we're talking about, right? So, like I said, man, he was consistent then. And one underappreciated stat is, I think, why he was in St. Louis so long after we lost a lot of games, because he has an interesting skill set to be able to coach through an expansion year. Because you understand, he was the head coach before they moved to Tennessee, and he was the head coach before they moved to LA. So that's an interesting skill set to just try to keep the product on the field good enough to keep the fan bases interested as he moved to another city. So I think, like I said, I think he did good in that retrospect, but consistency, man, was his biggest thing. Obviously, his biggest claim to fame is going to the Super Bowl as a wild card team, but I don't think that gets enough shine because to go through the teams that he did to get to that Super Bowl was out of this world. Like, you beat a Ravens team that had arguably one of the best defenses ever. Now, obviously, they were inept on offense, but the fact that you were able to coach your team through that, I think, is very good. And like I said, he's number 2 on my list. And number 1 is Tony Dungy. I mean, like I said, he is a player's coach if I ever seen one. All his players love him. They played tough. They won a lot of games. And that Tampa 2 defense was actually underrated, man. Underrated as far as, because Peyton Manning gets all the love, but defensively they were actually doing pretty good out there at times, especially with those defensive ends, man. Mathis and Freeney, like
Like Serena.
they was out there playing. But as far as him and his coaching career, I think you talk about consistency. He's been consistent, but it helps to have Peyton Manning at quarterback. But like I said, other than that, man, to keep everything good, consistency, winner. But that's the best coach in that division. Period.